Have you ever been watching an anime? The story's good, all of the animation and everything looks clean, but then you notice something in the background and you're like, ew, is that CGI? Hi, I'm Pointy Boy, and today I'm going to be talking about CGI use in anime, its general history, and how it's integrated into the art direction, both positively and negatively. CGI has become a bit of a boogeyman in the anime community, not without good reason to be fair, but it's at the point where people will flat out not watch a show just because it's CG. While I know logically that it's pretty stupid to write off an entire series because of something so minor, I'm also not going to sit here and pretend that I don't do this as well. I remember when I first heard about Girls Band Cry, I was excited to give it a go since high school girls starting a band is objectively the highest form of art. But then I saw the trailer and I was like, ew, is that CGI? Nobody ever enjoys finding out that their favorite manga is being sent to CGI jail for its anime adaptation. But what is it about CG that's so fundamentally unappealing to people? When did it change from looking like a high school Blender project to actually being decent? And why can some studios make it work, while others look like they're using technology from the 90s? The first anime to use CGI was a 1983 film called Golgo 13. It's a surprisingly fun, if not too deep, action movie. But ignoring the actual story, the CGI, yeah, it doesn't look great. Obviously, the technology was in a really primitive state here. I mean, we're talking about a movie that came out 2 years before the first Windows OS. And the bulk of the film was traditional hand-drawn animation, with a couple of CGI scenes thrown in there almost like a tech demo. The main uses of CG were in this helicopter attack scene that makes me want to agree with Miyazaki, and all these skulls in the intro that I was certain were about to start hitting that guitar riff. I'm usually not a fan of ripping into old stuff from a modern lens. I understand that everything has to start somewhere and it's not fair to make fun of the building blocks and all of that, but this shit was egregiously bad. I really can't imagine that any cinema goers in the 80s saw that chase sequence and were blown away by how realistic the helicopter looked. I'm sure they were just confused about why the animation turned to dog shit for about 40 seconds. The fact that CGI was used so minimally and was isolated to specific scenes honestly makes me think that they were just playing with a new toy and showing off what they could do with the technology, rather than thinking that it actually looked good. Because comparing the CGI to the hand-animated scenes will give you whiplash with how much the quality changes. Over the next few years, CGI started to get integrated into anime in more meaningful ways. Instead of just having a couple of gimmick scenes like Golgo, CGI was being used in combination with 2D in a way that was significantly less jarring. Rather than jumping between styles, the core animation would be hand-drawn while things like visual effects would be CG. In 1984, Lensman used CGI for some of the spaceships and effects in battle, while still keeping the bulk of the scene's animation 2D. But the best looking example I saw from this period was, unsurprisingly, Akira in 1988. Akira is famous for having pioneered a whole bunch of animation techniques, including CGI use, which you can find in this scene with the psychic wave patterns. While it does look a bit out of place compared to the hand-drawn animation, I think that by being so far removed from the art style, it actually complements the scene aesthetically and helps convey that we're seeing a completely new and unknown phenomenon. So why do the wave patterns look good in Akira, but the helicopter looks like shit in Golgo? Well, even ignoring the few years of technological improvement between the two films, it's all about intention. CGI wasn't used in Akira to save development time or to show off new technology. It was used because the creators thought it would improve the scene. Intention and context can have a massive effect on something's quality, and CGI, like any other tool, is something that can be implemented in a creative way that adds to the artistic vision, or it can be used to cut corners and finish something faster, as I'm sure we've all seen. As the 90s rolled around, things stayed largely the same, with some anime dipping their toes into CGI without really innovating too much. But in 1995, one of the most important films in the history of cinema was released: Toy Story. Joking aside, Ghost in the Shell really was a seminal film, and kind of set the stage for how CGI would be used in anime going forward. Also, it's kind of insane that Ghost in the Shell and Toy Story were released one fucking day apart from each other, and both went on to be massive influences on animation in their countries. Well, I guess they were actually released 2 days apart because of time zones. I always seem to forget that America is living in the past. Regardless, Ghost in the Shell's innovative use of CGI was, like Akira before it, a creative decision to make the world feel more futuristic. The use of CG for certain objects and effects was something that had been seen before, but where Ghost in the Shell broke the mold was with the blending of 3D backgrounds into 2D animation. This stylistic choice gave the film a special kind of atmosphere that had not been seen in anime before, and the ripple effect it had on future anime was enormous. After Ghost in the Shell, 3D backgrounds started being used more frequently in 2D productions. Cowboy Bebop used it, Serial Experiments Lain used it, and to truly show how much times were changing, even Mr. Anime Was a Mistake himself used CGI in Mononoke Hime and future Ghibli films. A new age for anime was dawning. And from this point forward, CGI would break the shackles of being an experimental gimmick and start to become more and more common. As the Y2K panic was dying down and the noughties began, the first fully CGI anime was released in the year 2000, Alice. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this one because, let's be real here, we can all see that it looks like shit. The technology just wasn't there yet, and it straight up looked worse than some PS1 games. Malice Doll in 2001 was another fully CG anime that didn't quite pass the sniff test. We'll circle back to fully 3D productions later when they become more prominent. But for now, let's talk about how CGI was blended into hand-drawn anime in the 2000s. Following the blueprint of Ghost in the Shell, it was no longer uncommon to see regular anime that had some CGI thrown in there. At this point in time, CGI was starting to be used less as a creative tool to give a distinct visual style, and had now developed to the point where it could be used as a method to save time during production. The idea was to seamlessly integrate CGI within the hand-drawn anime in a way that wouldn't be obvious to the viewer. Of course, results varied on exactly what seamless meant. But if I told you that classic shows like Naruto, Bleach, Code Geass, Gurren Lagann, and Fullmetal Alchemist all use CGI at certain points, could you honestly tell me that you already knew that? Many would argue that the best looking CGI is when you don't even notice that it's CGI, and a few shows from this era managed to actually pull that off. For better or worse, CG was becoming ingrained into anime production, especially in certain genres like mecha, just because of the amount of time that could be saved by using 3D models instead of having to draw everything. Sometimes it worked well, sometimes the studios were a bit too reliant on it, but overall, it was becoming accepted by the wider anime community that CGI was a useful tool for production. Okay, you knew this was coming. It's time to talk about Berserk. Berserk 2016 has been the butt of many a joke when discussing CGI, and seems to have been what kickstarted a lot of the anti-CG sentiment in anime fans. Because, well, look at it. It didn't help that it was adapting one of the most beloved manga ever written, and also happened to come out around the same time as a few other stinkers. The crazy thing is, around that time, we would experience some of the best looking CGI anime had ever seen. Hoseki no Kuni was a fully 3D production that began airing 1 year after Berserk. And this anime didn't just look okay for its time, or not bad for a 3D anime. It looked genuinely amazing without any qualifier. Beastars is another anime from this era that again looked great. Trigun Stampede is an anime that I can recognize looks fantastic, but there's still some primal repulsion deep inside of me that makes me not want to look at the characters' faces for too long. Maybe it's some sort of uncanny valley effect that didn't hit me with Beastars or Hoseki no Kuni, since those aren't human characters. I'm not sure. But my own biases aside, no one will argue that Trigun didn't look great. Now, the more astute viewer will notice, what a coincidence. These three shows are all from the same studio, and that's kind of the point I'm getting at. Studio Orange can make good-looking CGI because that's what they specialize in doing. From what I know about Berserk 2016's production, it was basically a clusterfuck between two studios that had never worked on this kind of action-heavy series before. So of course it was going to come out looking like shit. The same way that MAPPA aren't exactly 3D specialists. So a lot of the CG in Attack on Titan looked a bit awkward. Studio Orange make great looking CGI because that's what they're good at. And the other studios that only dip their toes in will always look worse. As time goes on, I'm sure studios will have dedicated staff that can handle CGI sections a lot better. But until then, we'll have to deal with a few awkward bears on screen. So that basically brings us to now, where CG is ubiquitous in anime, and you'll find it in just about everything, from action-heavy shonen to downbeat slice of life. CGI in anime probably isn't going anywhere, and even as someone who isn't the biggest fan, I can deal with a random car or dragon or whatever occasionally being 3D modeled to save some production time. And hopefully as time passes, we'll see fewer X-arms and more Dorohedoro's. So this video is a bit different to what I normally do. Instead of just rambling about my opinion on things, I actually had to do a bit of research. I'm sure there are certain parts of the timeline or whatever that I might have missed, but I tried to be as accurate as possible with the things that I did talk about. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more weeb shit.